he crashed a party, not because he wanted to party, but because he didn't want to party. And even when the king says, "Why are you here?" he didn't have an answer because he wasn't there to party. On a countdown to get to 200. I'm excited that you've stayed with me this long, and I'm honored to be here this long with you for 200 of these vlogs, these lectionary vlogs, as part of Preach the Story. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for your donations that keep these going, and thank you for your support. If you got any suggestions as we approach the 200 mark, please let me know how we can make these better. And this is for the 15th of October, 2023. And the passage, it was hard to pick this passage because one of my very favorite passages in all the Bible, Philippians 4, 1-9. And I had to get past it and deal with this one that I've never really preached on before. And this is the gospel reading from the 22nd chapter of Matthew, 1-14. And this is the story of Jesus telling what the kingdom of heaven may be compared to. And he's comparing it to once again, one of his favorite metaphors is a party, a wedding banquet. Let me just read it. Jesus once more spoke to them in parables, saying, "The kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who gave a wedding banquet for his son." All right, now, father, son. He sent his servants to call those who had been invited to the wedding banquet, but they would not come. Again, he sent other servants, saying, "Tell those who have been invited, look, I prepared my dinner. My oxen, my fat calves have all been slaughtered, and everything is ready. Come to the wedding banquet." But they made light of it and went away. One to his farm, another to his business, while the rest seized his servants, maltreated them, and killed them. The king was enraged. He sent his troops, destroyed those murderers, and burned their city. Then he said to his servants, "The wedding is ready, but those invited were not worthy. So go into the main streets and invite everyone you find to the wedding banquet." And those servants went out into the streets and gathered all whom they found, both good and bad. So the wedding hall was filled with guests. When the king came to see the guests, he noticed a man who was not wearing a wedding robe. And he said to him, "Friend, how did you get in here without a wedding robe?" And he was speechless. Then the king said to the attendants, bind him hand and foot, and throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen. First thing I want us to notice about this is that this fits a whole pattern, a syndrome, if you will, of Jesus using the party metaphor and loving parties. He opened his ministry with a miracle to save a party, the wedding feast at Cana of Galilee in John 2. Who was saved? Nobody. Who was healed? Nobody. What sermon was preached? Nobody. I mean, I could go on and on. Well, this is the inaugural miracle to tell what his mission is about. And it's, heaven is a banquet. It's a feast. It's a party. And that was the miracle. He saved the party. 3 of the Gospels tell of the party at the house of Levi, the tax collector. This is Matthew 9, Mark 2, Luke 5. And there's this party at the house of Simon the Pharisee. And then there's the Last Supper, which is really a party, which is in all 4 Gospels. It's a party story. There's this party. Jesus loved to tell party stories. This is the parable of the great banquet. You can also find it in Luke. It's the parable of the wedding feast in Matthew 25. There's the parable of the prodigal son who comes home and his father arranges for a party to celebrate. Then there is the story of the 10 virgins. The 5 wise virgins and the 5 foolish virgins. Really, the 5 wise ones, what made them wise? They were prepared. What made the 5 foolish? They were strategic planners. They knew when they planned, they trimmed their works accordingly, and they knew when he was going to come back, and they bet it all on, we can predict when he's going to come back. And the 5 said, no, you can't. It's got to be prepared. So you've got over and over again Jesus loving. In fact, the vision of heaven in Revelation and throughout Jesus' ministry is when Jesus says, come home, it's come to the party. The heaven is a banquet, it's a feast, it's a party prepared for you. You might even say, I don't know who's the first one to say this, but clearly Jesus was in the camp who thought that life is a party, that the gift of life and the gift of eternal life was a party. So what does that mean when you say, okay, life is a party, life is a banquet, we are all part of this invitation to come? Well, it means, first of all, life is a celebration. Life is joy. Life is jubilation, it's happiness, it's gratitude, it's fun. To say life is a party means life is also community. You can't have a party by yourself. There's no party of one. You know, I'm a party of one. When people say that when they go to a restaurant, that's no party. Party symbolize friendship and camaraderie and belonging and togetherness and kind of esprit that comes from a community. So life is also a party because parties get diverse people together. A party of everybody the same is a boring party. Life is diversity. It's difference. As parties bring together people from different backgrounds, different cultures, and you learn from this difference. You learn to tolerate difference. You learn to accept people who are different. And life is freedom. Parties are time to let it rip, to let loose, to have joy that isn't restrained somewhat. There's spontaneity. There's living in the moment. So this is the gift of life that God has given us. Life is a party. Life is this gift. It's this gift of celebration, community, diversity. It's freedom. And yet, so many people have trouble receiving this gift of life. There's a new word that TikTok has made famous because TikTok, whenever somebody said that somebody committed suicide, they would block it out, delete it. And so the TikTok community picked up a phrase that actually began in the mental health community in the first 2 decades of the 20th century. Instead of saying something harsh, I mean, suicide literally, comes from the German, which means self-murder. It's Selbstmord, literally selbst is self and mord is murder, murdering the self. So instead of that harshness, some of the people in the medical community and the mental health community started using the word unalived themselves. Somebody unalived themselves. And it emerged in 2010s. It's become recently very, very popular. And I have mixed feelings about it because there is this gravity of murdering oneself. But what I do like about that phrase as a replacement for the word suicide is we all are on the spectrum here. We all do things on a daily basis that make our life shorter. The choices that we make, the food that we eat, the places that we go, the risks that we take. And so this unalived himself or themselves, itself, doesn't glamorize it or romanticize it or normalize it, but opens up this whole conversation to what it means that we're all on the spectrum of unaliving life. We are, in some ways, you could say, the waking dead. And we, not just walking dead, the waking dead. And as we unalive our life on a daily basis, and we refuse the party of life, we keep ourselves from the party of life. What do you say? What do you mean? Well, how do we unalive our lives? Well, let me give you some examples. What keeps us from the party? We are more interested in party lines than party times. And I want to repeat that. We're more interested in party lines than in party times. We so toe the party line that we can't gather with people who disagree with us, who are different from us. In fact, party politics has become a denominational religion. We're so focused on our little feuds with one another, our political feuds. I say I'm a party man. I'm disgusted with all existing parties. So that's my party, disgust at all parties. The other thing, how do we unalive our life and keeps us from the party? Well, and this is where I really thank the Lutherans for teaching me this, that we turn carnivals into cranials. It's all about the cerebral, not the celebration. And the first time I learned that you could actually be a Christian and have fun at a party was with the Lutherans. Thank you, Lutherans. I mean, the Methodists raised me, the Baptists saved me, but the Lutherans taught me how to love the church and how the church itself can be a celebration of life, a party time. And Lutherans, thank you. Friedrich Nietzsche said something, "It is no feat to stage a festival, but rather to find those who take pleasure in it." He says this in his book, The Twilight of the Idols. It was published in 1888. And he's criticizing the materialistic and superficial culture of our day, that where people have lost the ability to appreciate beauty and to celebrate creativity and to find joy in one another and just in conversation, and instead opt for things that are shallow and meaningless. We also unalive our life, waking dead, with all of our addictions. This is a highly addictive culture. And one of the most serious addictions is our device addiction. The average American spends more time scrolling with their devices than spending time with their children. The average parent spends more time scrolling on their devices than being with their children. 80% of us own at least 3 devices. Our children own at least 2 devices. 81% of our children own 2 devices. And we are stimulated by our devices, not our relationships, not our friendships, not each other, but what stimulates us are these artificial drugs. Tech addiction is now as serious as drug and alcohol addiction. And it is devastating to our kids. You see with our kids the same kind of compulsive behavior that you see with people that are drug addicts. And now phone addicts are showing the same symptoms as crack addicts. And truly we're hooked on a new kind of crack. 50% of teenagers in the U.S. say they are always online never offline. 50%. It's a new umbilical cord. But it's not an umbilical cord to a party. We also, you gave a couple more, unalive our life. Refuse to go to the party by not taking care of ourselves. And by the foods that we eat. I mean, ultra industrial processed foods make up half of our calorie consumption, and they've been shown to cause cancer and heart disease, and we still eat them. Ingredients in these highly processed foods include high fructose corn syrup, hydrogenized oil, hydrolyzed proteins, additives like colors, emulsifiers, emulsifying salts, sweeteners, thickeners, anti-foaming, bulking, carbonating, gelling and glazing agents. I could go on. And you look at the list of foods, just go look at the list of foods that are classified as ultra-processed foods. Soft drinks, energy drinks, fruit nectar drinks, which I love, refined cereal, instant cereals, candy, chips, instant soups, energy bars, yogurts, which I love, processed cheese, meal replacement shakes, and powders. I mean, I could go on and on. We unalive our life. We refuse to go to the party because we're afraid to live the moment that we're in. We escape to PlayStations and to these playgrounds online called TikTok and Instagram, and we don't live the context. And that's part of the context. I'm not opposed to these things, but it's everything in its place. A newly released 2023 Annenberg Constitution Day Civic Survey just came out. Found that more than 2/3 of Americans can't name the 3 branches of government. 10% can't list 2. And 17% can't list even 1. Only 1 in 5 can name the branches of government. Only 1 in 20 can name all 5 freedoms protected by the First Amendment. In fact, 20% weren't even able to name a single right. And we unalive our lives. We become part of the waking dead by refusing the invitation to party. And this is where I'm preaching to myself now. By being better at giving than receiving. Which is another way of saying godifying ourselves. I am better at giving parties than going to parties. I love to host a party. But I have to summon up a lot of energies to be a guest at a party, to go to one. In fact, when I do, I usually get the LIFO award, LIFO, last in, first out. Now, what that says about me is not good. That says I'm a better giver, I love to give parties, than a receiver, be a guest at a party. Which is one of the worst things you can say about anyone, which is one of the worst problems you can have, because God's category is giver, my category is receiver. And the fact that I'm a better giver than a receiver means I don't like my category. I want God's category. Freely you have received, the Bible says, freely give. We can only give because we first have received. Everything I have is a gift. And I want to be the giver. I don't want to be the receiver. And that keeps me from aliving to life. The will of God is to live life, to glorify God, to enjoy God. I heard a lot growing up. 1 John 2, 16 to 17. The lust of the flesh, the pride of life, comes not from the Father, but from the world. The world and its desires pass away, but whoever does the will of God lives forever. But that's the will of God, is for us to live life, to glorify God, to enjoy God, to bring God pleasure, and to take pleasure in the gifts that God has given us. I didn't hear growing up about the evils of dullness and greed and uncreativity and legalism and ugliness and hypocrisy and lies. I have come that you might have life, Jesus said. Whole life. So here we have a party crasher in the story. Everybody has a wedding garment. Back then in Jesus' day, it wasn't just the bride that wore the garment. Everybody wore the garments. You came to a party, a wedding party, you wore the wedding garments. But here is a new kind of party crasher, okay? He crashed a party not because he wanted to party, but because he didn't want to party. And even when the king says, "Why are you here?" he didn't have an answer because he wasn't there to party. He was just there to maybe to critique, maybe to observe, maybe just to freeload. But he was not there to receive the gift of a party. And for that, he received the ultimate condemnation. Sisters and brothers, life is a party. Life is given to us to enjoy, to feast, to find that freedom and community and to find that creativity and the joy that comes, the celebration that comes from this gift of life. Don't unalive yourselves to life. Don't make those daily decisions that unalive you. Come alive to life. And that's what the resurrection message is all about. I have come that you might have life, whole life, abundant life, not half life, not term life. Come and live. Now, to come and live, we also have to come and die to ourselves. But we live to Christ and enjoy him. Take pleasure in him. So that one day we can hear these words, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have brought me, your life has brought me, your ministry has brought me great pleasure."